Deep in the heart of the Karakum Desert, there is a geographic scar that has been burning for over 50 years, a roaring pit of fire that the local residents call the door to hell. It is a place where the earth itself seems to have been ripped open, venting an eternal flame that illuminates the pitch-black desert night for miles.
But this isn't a natural wonder created by volcanic activity. It is a monument to a catastrophic Soviet engineering failure that occurred during the height of the Cold War energy race. Welcome back to Tales by Flex. If you're fascinated by the hidden stories that shape our maps, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an investigation. Today, we investigate how a search for energy created a permanent environmental disaster, and why one of the world's most isolated nations still struggles to close a portal they never intended to open. To understand the door to hell, we must first look at the unique geography of the Karakum. Spanning 70% of Turkmenistan's landmass, this is one of the driest and most inhospitable places on the planet. The crater sits near the village of Darvaza, a name that literally translates to the gate.
Turkmenistan itself is a geographic fortress, bordered by the Caspian Sea to the west and enclosed by the harsh, shifting sands of the desert. It is a nation defined by its extreme isolation, consistently ranking as one of the least visited countries in the world. This isolation is not merely a political choice by the government. It is a physical reality dictated by the land. The Darvaza crater is 230 feet wide and 65 feet deep, a massive void in the limestone plateau. It exists because the ground here sits atop one of the largest natural gas reserves in the world. In the early 1970s, Soviet geologists identified this specific coordinate as a prime drilling site for what they hoped would be a major oil field. They did not realize that the geography beneath their feet was a massive underground cavern filled with high-pressure natural gas. When they began drilling, the weight of the equipment caused the ground to collapse, swallowing the entire rig and leaving behind a venting crater.
To prevent poisonous methane from reaching nearby settlements, the engineers made a fateful decision. They lit the gas on fire, expecting it to burn out in weeks. Instead, the geography has sustained this flame for half a century.
The first layer of our investigation begins in 1971, during the Soviet Union's aggressive push for energy independence. At the time, Turkmenistan was a Soviet republic, and its desert was viewed as a resource colony. The geologists who arrived at Darvaza were working under the pressure of Moscow's quotas. When the drilling site collapsed, it created a massive sinkhole that released a constant stream of methane. Methane is an invisible, odorless gas, but in high concentrations, it displaces oxygen and can be lethal to livestock and humans.
The engineers were facing a geographic emergency they were unprepared to manage.
Lighting the gas was considered a standard flaring procedure. In most oil fields, small amounts of gas are burned off routinely. However, the engineers had vastly underestimated the scale of the Darvaza pocket. They were not flaring a single well. They had accidentally opened the ceiling of a massive interconnected gas field.
Because natural gas is lighter than air, it rose through the porous limestone, creating a self-sustaining furnace. For the next 20 years, the Soviet government kept the true nature of the Darvaza disaster a state secret, hiding the mistake behind the desert's natural isolation. The second layer emerges after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. Turkmenistan became an independent nation,
and the new government inherited a burning hole in the ground that was literally consuming their most valuable export. By this point, the crater had become a local legend, a glowing beacon in the desert, used by nomadic tribes for navigation.
But for the government in Ashgabat, it was an embarrassment, a visible symbol of a failed era. They faced a unique geographic dilemma. How do you extinguish a fire that is being fed by an underground reservoir nearly 1,000 feet deep?
In 2010, President Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov visited the site and officially ordered that the crater be closed or extinguished to protect the environment and health of the people living nearby. Yet, 16 years later, the fire still burns.
The problem is not a lack of will, but a lack of technical feasibility.
Pumping enough cement or sand into a hole of that size to cut off the oxygen supply would cost millions of dollars, and there is no guarantee that the gas wouldn't simply find a new fissure in the limestone to escape, creating an even more dangerous, unmonitored fire.
The third layer involves the scientific investigation of the crater's interior. In 2013, explorer George Kourounis became the first person to descend to the bottom of the door to hell. Clad in a heat-reflective suit and breathing through an oxygen tank, Kourounis was a pioneer in a geographic alien world. He discovered that despite the extreme temperatures and methane-rich environment, life was thriving. He found specialized bacteria that had evolved to live in the furnace-like conditions of the crater, microorganisms that don't exist anywhere else on the Earth's surface.
This discovery changed the narrative of the door to hell. It was no longer just a site of Soviet failure. It became a laboratory for astrobiology. Scientists began using the data from Darvaza to understand how life might exist on other planets with extreme environments, such as Mars or the moons of Jupiter.
Geography had created a unique biosphere by accident. However, while the crater provided scientific value, it continued to be a massive source of methane emissions, a greenhouse gas 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide over a 20-year period.
The fourth layer is the transition of Darvaza into a dark tourism destination. Despite the government's desire to close it, the crater has become Turkmenistan's most famous landmark. In a country that issues fewer than 10,000 tourist visas a year, those who do visit are almost all headed to the Karakum.
The government eventually realized that the door to hell was a brand. They built fences around the perimeter and even renamed the site the Shining of the Karakum to make it sound more like a natural wonder and less like a nuclear age mistake.
This creates a fascinating contradiction in Turkmenistan's national policy. On one hand, the government publicly commits to reducing methane leaks to meet international environmental standards. On the other hand, the crater is their only consistent draw for international revenue and media attention.
This tension is mirrored in the land itself, a desert that is both a graveyard of ancient empires and the future of a modern energy superpower. The door to hell is the point where these two identities collide, a burning hole that refuses to be ignored or extinguished. Finally, we must look at the technical reality of closing the gate in 2026. Experts from around the world have proposed using everything from specialized foam to explosives to collapse the cavern. However, any intervention carries the risk of a secondary explosion. The natural gas field beneath the Karakum is vast and interconnected. If an attempt to seal the crater causes a pressure spike elsewhere, it could lead to a catastrophic blowout at an active gas plant. The geography of the gas field has effectively taken the government hostage, forcing them to let the fire burn. This is the true isolation ethic of Turkmenistan. The crater is allowed to burn because the risk of changing the status quo is too high. It remains a sovereign void, a place where the rules of environmental management are suspended by the sheer power of the Earth's internal pressure.
As long as the Karakum holds its breath, the fire will continue to roar. The crater is not just a hole in the ground. It is a thermal signature of the deep history and the high-stakes future of Central Asia, visible even from the silence of space.
Turkmenistan's door to hell is more than just a bizarre landmark. It is a case study in how geographic scars dictate the geopolitical standing of a nation. Turkmenistan holds the world's fourth largest reserves of natural gas, yet its geography makes it landlocked and dependent on neighbors like Russia and China for export pipelines.
The burning crater is a literal waste of this precious resource, yet it persists because of the same infrastructure weaknesses that limit the country's economic reach. It represents the paradox of plenty, where a nation is rich in energy, but impoverished by the geographic and political barriers to utilizing it.
Furthermore, the crater has become a focal point in the global fight against climate change. In an era of global methane pledges, a 50-year-old fire is a diplomatic liability. International organizations are now offering technical and financial aid to help Turkmenistan seal the leak. This turns the door to hell into a tool for geopolitical engagement. For a nation that has historically practiced positive neutrality, avoiding alliances and international entanglements, the crater is the one issue that forces them to the negotiating table. The fire is a geographic bridge between a closed society and the global community.
This atoll of fire in the middle of a sand sea proves that environmental disasters do not respect borders or isolation. The methane released in the Karakum affects the atmosphere of the entire planet. Poveglia had its plague, Diego Garcia has its military base, and Turkmenistan has its eternal flame.
Each of these sovereign voids shows us that geography is the ultimate arbiter of power. When we look at the door to hell, we are seeing the point where human ambition was defeated by the very land it sought to master.
It is a reminder that some gates, once opened, can never be truly shut.
So we are left with a difficult ethical question for the 21st century. Should the world continue to pressure Turkmenistan to extinguish the door to hell, to save our atmosphere, even if it means destroying a unique biological laboratory and a world-famous wonder?
Or is some damage so integrated into our history that we should simply let it burn until the Earth itself decides it is finished? Let me know in the comments. Is the door to hell a monument to progress or a warning of our failure?
I'm reading every response.
If this investigation into the fire of the Karakum fascinated you, you won't want to miss our next deep dive. We are traveling to another geographic scar that was created by the same Soviet energy machine. But this time, the water didn't burn, it disappeared. Next week, we investigate the Aral Sea, the geography of a disappearing ocean.
Make sure to subscribe to Tales by Flex so you never miss a story behind the maps.
Geography is the lens through which we view our future, and sometimes that lens is filled with fire. I'll see you in the next investigation.
Goodbye for now.